All right, welcome back. We're going to jump into single row functions, and it's chapter 10, so make sure you read chapter 10. And so let's talk about what we're going to do. So the data that's stored in the database is very specifically stored. So let's look at an example. So I'm logged in here, go to the SQL Workshop, go to SQL Commands, and let's run a quick query, select star from books. And when you look at this query, see how it says body build in 10 minutes a day? Let's look at title. So all the titles are uppercase. So if we wanted to, what we could do is we could say there are functions built into SQL. We say lowercase of title. And that's what a function does. A function, if you think about what it did, for every row in this database, as it returned this, it said, for every title, make it a lowercase version. So that's what a function does. It takes in something and then it returns something. So it took in title as it is on disk, on the table, and then it returned a lowercase version. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So obviously you won't have to know all of these, but we're going to do a lot of them. And let's get started here. So they're uppercase, lowercase, round, there's date functions, and they start with what a function is. A function just accepts arguments. Sometimes it returns something, sometimes it does something in the database, but for us, for today, it's going to return something. And we'll look at a bunch of different functions. These are the different types of functions. Case conversion, character manipulation, numeric, date, regular expressions we're not going to do, and other functions we probably won't do too much. So let's go through a bunch of these here. So the first will be case conversion, and that's just making things uppercase, lowercase, or init cap. So let's just do one example with all of these, and I want you to type yours as I do mine. So I'm just going to put a star in there just to see what I can pull back here to modify. Whoops. Let's change this to customers. And let's pick just last name here. So let's say last name, comma, lower of last name, comma, upper of last name. So we're just pulling the same thing just so you can compare what it does. And init cap of last name from customers. And you can see this is what's in the database, all uppercase. This is a lowercase conversion. This is an uppercase conversion. And this is init cap, which is just the first letter of each word is initialized. So try this example. Pause this video. Try this example. Come back. Come on, did you really try it? Come on, you should. Okay, so let's go into character manipulation functions. And this is usually when dealing with what's within the word, right? It's like what's inside each word. So the first is substring, and that returns a portion of the string. So let's just try to see what we can do with that. So here I have select last name, and then substring of last name. Start with the second character, go over 3 characters. So you see Morales, O-R-A, O-R-A. Start with the second character, go over 3 characters. If you move this over to the fourth, you see it's the A-L-E. Starts with the 4th character, counts over 4 characters. And so what this is useful for is in manufacturing or in any kind of where there's an ID where let's say the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, or you know, any certain chunk of an ID is useful to us, but not the whole thing. And this lets us pull it out and write a report on it. It's pretty cool. It's very useful. So make sure you try that one. All right, so let's keep going. You have the inString function, which finds the first instance of something within a string. So let's look at what that is. Or actually, you don't need this one. You don't need this one. This has been deprecated. There's a different way to do this now. So skip this one. Don't do inString. You can nest functions. You can see this will do something. I'm not sure exactly what it'll do. The problem with nesting functions is it gets very complex, and then the next remember, you're writing code for it to work, but also somebody else is going to come around and have to edit that code later, and it's no fun when nobody can read your code. So you want to make sure that your code is readable, even though you can nest functions. So this means put one function inside of another. But let's talk about nesting functions real quick. Let's actually do an example. let's make all of this lowercase. Okay, so you just wrap it in another set of parentheses, and when you run that, you get a lowercase version of the substring. Okay, so that's a way to nest functions. And pause this video and try this. Make sure you're trying these. All right, there's a length function, and what that does is it returns the length of a specific data set. And so you could say, okay, let's just add to this, comma, length of last name. And you get the length of their entire last name. And that's useful just to see, well, I don't know what that, not for last name, but sometimes you're trying to figure out if data that's coming back, if you know it's a 10-character ID you're supposed to get and you're only getting 8 characters, it sort of helps you troubleshoot things. All right, let's keep going. So there are also characters that add padding or fill in characters so that you can make everything the same length. You don't have to do that though. In this class, there are things that trim off white space, which is nice if there's too much white space in there, or trim off a specific string of characters, like the last 5 or the first 3. Then there's a replace function, and so this is kind of useful. So let's check this out. And let's say they change the state of Florida to crazy state or something. So you could actually say, you know, select state, and then let's do replace. You can say, okay, replace for each state record we have, where it says FL, I want it to say crazy state. And then that should run. And wherever we see Florida, that's the original, Florida just says crazy state. So sometimes you just want to see a full word or something. So it's just a way to substitute. It's not changing the actual data. Florida FL is still in the database in that field, but crazy state has been updated a little bit. So this is just what we see. It's not actually what's in the database. None of the things we do in this whole class actually change data. We're just reporting data because that's mostly what you're going to do working with data. All right, the translate function we're not going to use. Concat is very useful. Let's look at, so concat over here, let's say we'll start with star here. And let's say we want to say first name, last name, lives in, and we'll say state. And what we're trying to do is approximate like a sentence, right? Oh wait, what did I do here? Last name. Got that last name. Lat name is not an identifier. And then it says Benita Morales lives in Florida, but that's not a really nice way to write it. So there's 2 concat characters. We could do this, which is double pipes, which is 2 characters above your enter key. Shift in that character, like that. And then when you run that, it says Benita Morales lives in Florida, but it's still not pretty because we have to put some spaces. It needs some spaces. So we'll put some spaces here. It's still ugly. So we need to actually add some space there. Now it says Benita Morales lives in Florida. And we'll actually concatenate. And then you might want to do init cap. So I'm going to make this complex and we're going to walk through the whole thing. I want you to try this. Please try this. All right. See that. Benita Morales lives in Florida. Ryan Thompson lives. So this is what reports start to look like. So let's do select init cap first name. So this is making init cap is a conversion function that just changes Benita all uppercase to the first character uppercase. This double pipe is a concat character, which just smacks something together with this space, single quote, space, single quote, which you see right there. Morales is init cap again. Concatenated with lives in, which is just a string that I threw in there. State, and then a period. You see the period right there. And that's how you use these functions together to sort of write checks. So I used to write checks. If you ever had a printed check, you take data from your actual database, your payroll data, and you spit it out. And this is what how bills and things like that, your cell phone bill actually gets created. I'm not going to make you do any number functions, so don't worry about that. But let's just look at them really quickly. So for rounding, you can round up and down. You can truncate, which truncate is just like round, but you just chop off the number instead of rounding it. I'm not going to do mod or absolute functions. Let's talk about dates though. I won't just real quickly because you're going to have an assignment like this. So dates are really useful. We're not going to do too much with dates, but let's check out some subtraction, because a lot of times you do calculations to see whether things are on time, that type of stuff. So let's look at the orders table. So you have ship date and order date. So what we can look for is, let's say order number, comma, ship date, order date, and then maybe you could do ship date minus order date, like a subtraction. And then what you get is, you can see that there are 2 days between this, and then you could even order by 1, 2, 3, 4. You could say 4 because it's the 4th column, and then you say descending, and you could see, whoops, oh yeah, because so if things haven't been shipped yet, they won't have a ship date. And then you can see that some things are 4 days out, some days. So this one took a lot longer than the others to ship out. So order 1004. So this is done a lot when you're looking at whether or not things are being shipped on time, whether or not there's a lag in customer service, that type of stuff. So this is very useful. This is just subtraction though. Let's look at the actual date functions. And what they have here is, let's look at, they have a months between function. They have add months function. They have a next day function. I mean, there's a lot. Dates are a whole course in themselves. You could have a whole course on just dates. But let's look at something, well, no, let's just keep going, sorry. You're not going to do regular expressions. They're very complex, but they're kind of useful. And then these are for nulls, and I think that's the whole chapter. We're not going to do decode or cases. So let's look at, now let's talk about the dual table. There is a table in every database called dual, D-U-A-L. And because you note that everything that we've had to select from has had to be data that's in the database. But sometimes you just want the date, let's say. So sysdate from dual. And what this gives you is, it's a dummy table. So this is today's date. I think there's a systime function to get the time of the, yeah, there's no systime. I forget what that, forget the name. Oh, you could format sysdate. But there's nothing in dual. It's an empty table. So if you do select star from dual, it's just the letter X. It's just a dummy table to work with. So let's look at your assignments for today. So first, let me put a link to the book here. All right, so there's a link to the textbook there. There is a link to the PowerPoints. There's a link to your discussion. You just have to post once, going over a thing called ETL, extract, transform, and load. It's very popular. You should also do a job search of what ETL is. Like just go to Indeed, type in ETL. There's lots of work doing ETL work. And then your assignment is just another 3 queries and your quiz. And I'll clear, if you see, I'll probably look through the quiz, see if there's any questions that are tricky, but all the quiz questions, you should be able to take the quizzes twice. And sometimes there's a curve, so look out for that. Other than that, I'll post a link to this video, and you could always email me anytime. Talk to you soon.